This next speaker you may know of as Libs of TikTok. She is absolutely one of the heroes online. She did something that was Barack who talked about mocking. Libs of TikTok took what they were saying and just showcased it, just their own words right back at them, and what a furor that caused. Oh my God, this is insane stuff. Well, yes, by the way, it is. Then was doxxed, her identity revealed, and now we know her as Chaya Raichik. She is extremely vocal on issues related to pretty much everything, combating the woke agenda, generally speaking, also as it concerns children, and I just want to add, because of who we are here, on behalf of Israel, so we love her for that, too. Are we set with the tech? All right, thank you. Please join me in welcoming, and it's such an honor to have her here, Chaya Raichik.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and people from all the two categories of genders. Thank God our Antifa folks didn't end up showing up, or they would be very triggered right now by hearing that. I think it's a bit too early in the day for them still. So I'm very grateful to be here today to talk to you about one of the most important issues affecting our society and culture today, the war on our children. And this really shouldn't have anything to do with politics, because simply protecting the most vulnerable population should not really have anything to do with politics. So let me start by giving a bit of background on how I got to speaking in front of you today. So less than 3 years ago, I know it feels like forever, but it's been less than 3 years, I was a random, unknown real estate agent living in New York City. I had no background or experience in politics, in media, in journalism. I had no connections, network, or a famous father who could help me make lots of money by doing no work. So basically, I wasn't Hunter Biden. So how did an unknown real estate agent get to being invited to speak today in Los Angeles, have Elon Musk himself subscribe to my channel, and get invited to a private dinner with President Trump? So you just heard one story of an awakening, and here's mine. What happened during the pandemic opened my eyes to just how untrustworthy our institutions have become. So I started paying attention to what was going on around me, and I was awakened. You could even say I woke up, but I'm not really into blue hair and septum piercings. So that's when I discovered TikTok. And I started browsing and was absolutely shocked and mortified by what I was seeing. These radical LGBTQ activists, the groomer teachers, anti-American views, it was seemingly all that TikTok put into my feed for me to see. So I just knew that I had to share what I was seeing. So I simply started anonymously reposting these TikToks onto Twitter under the name Libs of TikTok. And my page just exploded. Most of the content I was posting was previously unknown, and TikTok wasn't as popular then as it is now. And it seemed that TikTok was just a cesspool of mental illness. Well, I shouldn't say it seemed, because it is. TikTok is a cesspool of mental illness, and it's specifically targeting children. So the American people were apparently equally as shocked and mortified as I was, and many of them eagerly followed me to stay up to date on the latest grooming tactics and the latest insanity happening in the schools across America. So as we look around our society, you can't miss the fact that the left controls every single aspect of our culture. They own all the institutions, the colleges and universities, big tech, besides now Twitter, thank you, Elon, all of the Fortune 500 companies, the local stores where you buy your food and clothing. They run all our schools, corporations, most of the media, and all the three-letter agencies, and now they occupy the White House. And the far left are using all of these institutions to implement their agenda of sexualizing our children and indoctrinating them into becoming activists for their causes. Never before have we seen so many different institutions working in tandem to influence the minds of our youth, turning them against their families, sowing confusion about their identity, and causing physical, emotional, and mental harm. The toxic ideology behind all of this is everywhere you turn. And this is something I discovered firsthand when I began reporting on content that was being posted on TikTok and across the web by progressive teachers. I always thought progress was a good thing, but now that being progressive means chopping off confused kids' body parts, I don't know if it's a good thing anymore. If you want to understand just how crazy some of these people's posts were, for the mere crime of reposting their own videos that they themselves put on the internet, I am regularly called far-right, fascist, a terrorist, transphobic, and even a Nazi, which would probably make me the most famous Jewish Nazi. The SPLC added me to their hate watch list last week, and I was on the ADL's glossary of extremism, all for not wanting kids to get their body parts chopped off. So the far left running all these institutions coordinate to capture our children and launch vicious attacks against anyone who dares to notice or expose it. The smears and attacks on people like me are a sign that the very media institutions, schools, hospitals, and entertainment companies which are promoting this horrific ideology are so embarrassed by how their views look to the ordinary American that they have to try to shut down people like me who simply show the world what these people believe and what they themselves are saying. Simply put, their views do not hold up to scrutiny. So what do they believe, and what are their views? Well, let me give you some examples. This might get a bit dark. In a video I reposted, an elementary teacher at a school in Utah was describing conversations with students that she has about sexuality. So she said, quote, "They come visit me almost every day after school, and a lot of them are queer because I am queer, and they figured it out, so I become their safe space." Not only that, this teacher finished by discussing how the game Guess Who is played in her classroom, with comments like, "This person looks like a lesbian baddie," and "Which character just looks gay?" Yeah, imagine if that was your fourth grade child's teacher. And if you think this is some sort of one-off cherry-picked example, unfortunately, you're very wrong. Woke teachers at schools across America are indoctrinating children into LGBTQ ideology. An elementary teacher in Elk Grove, California, elementary school district, recently came under fire after it was discovered that they had a secret gay club for elementary students that they didn't inform parents about. And in Washington State, students will now be mandated to learn about LGBTQ history thanks to a bill signed by Democrat Governor Jay Inslee. In another video I reposted, this teacher in Oklahoma told students, "If your parents don't love and accept you for who they are, F them, I'm your parent now." And these stories go on and on and on. I can spend hours talking about the examples I brought to light of LGBTQ indoctrination and gender ideology in the school systems. But it's not just schools that are waging war on our children. Hospitals all over the United States are giving children what they call gender-affirming care. I call it what it is: sex-denying care and child mutilation. It's pushed by ideologically driven doctors and supported by gender-affirming parents. Kids are having their bodies permanently altered through genital mutilation, cross-hormone injections, and puberty-stunting medications. The fact that many of them, like my friend Chloe Cole, go on to regret it seems irrelevant to the people who are doing this. I'll never forget what Chloe said of her experience. "My childhood was ruined, along with thousands of detransitioners, It's caused permanent changes to my body. My voice will forever be deeper, my jawline sharper, my nose longer, my bone structure permanently masculinized, my Adam's apple more prominent, my fertility unknown. I look in the mirror sometimes and I feel like a monster. My childhood was ruined. And Chloe is just one of thousands. I know you wanted her here today, she couldn't be here, so I'm glad I was able to quote her, and that is a real experience that Chloe had. There are so many like her. And if you're a sensible, reasonable, rational person, you might be tempted to think, well, okay, our schools and hospitals are confusing, deluding, mutilating kids. I bet the media are all over the story. They're probably running several multi-million-dollar investigations into this because that's their job, right? To expose corruption, corporate malfeasance, and the mistreatment of children. There's no way they'd ignore a story this big. And you're right, they haven't ignored it. They actually went much further than that, and they actively cover it up. They cover up when people expose the abuse of children, especially when it comes to saving children from radical transgender treatments, abuse, and indoctrination. When I reported on Boston Children's Hospitals offering hysterectomies to young girls, you heard me right, hysterectomies, the media went all out to cover up for them. They immediately started publishing articles claiming that I was lying, despite multiple videos from the hospital's own channels and information on their website, which they right away removed after I posted their content. The cover-up from the media went so far that AOC herself mentioned me in a committee hearing and demanded to know why Twitter didn't ban me for my reporting on Boston Children's Hospital. But don't worry, I know how to take care of myself. So here's me tricking AOC into taking a photo with her, where I told her that I delivered an ethics complaint to her office for lying about me in a committee hearing. Yeah, that was a fun day. So you may have heard the tragic story of Next Benedict, a non-binary teen from Oklahoma who died from an overdose. So if you watch the mainstream media, you would get an entirely different story. And this is the story that you would get. That I, Chaya, am responsible for her death because I am anti-LGBT, I spread transphobia, and she was killed at school by transphobic classmates who targeted her because she was non-binary. So that's a story you would get. That's a story the media ran with for weeks, blaming me for this really tragic death. Weeks after her death, the medical examiner revealed that she actually died from an overdose. She was on drugs, one of which is actually a drug that is commonly given to adolescents who are transitioning. And it's actually known to increase suicidal impulses. And not only that, her father molested and raped her for years, and he was arrested again just 2 weeks before she overdosed and died. And she had multiple suicide notes written. Horrible. And these aren't just tragic coincidences. There is actually a correlation between people identifying as LGBT and being the victim of abuse. So in a 2022 study from Vanderbilt, they found that 83% of LGBTQ individuals reported going through adverse childhood experiences, such as sexual or emotional abuse, compared to 64% of non-LGBTQ people. This is a very important topic. Many of you this might be your first time hearing it. This is something that the media should be talking about. And the media actually knew that information when they first started blaming me for Nex's death, and they failed to report on it. They would rather protect pedophiles and groomers who prey on vulnerable young children and blame her death on me to score some political points. The mainstream media are the best allies to pedophiles. They're the best allies that pedophiles could ever hope for. When many of us started pointing out the grooming happening in all these institutions, big tech stepped in to cover for the predators. Twitter decided to just straight up ban the word groomer. You were no longer allowed to write the word groomer. And if you did, you faced a permanent suspension. So this rule was obviously overturned when Elon bought Twitter. Again, thank you, Elon. That's how far big tech and the media will go to protect pedophiles and predators. While the mainstream media and big tech are busy running interference for the child mutilation cult, the kids themselves are being targeted on social media by groomers and predators who seek to entice children into abandoning their family attachments and instead use them as their support system. Social media has done incredible harm by spreading gender ideology to young children through viral applications, especially TikTok. When I first started investigating this, I remember being stunned when I came across a video from a notorious trans activist named Jeffrey Marsh, and he would explicitly tell kids to cut off contact with their parents. And he even offers kids to pay him to chat with him privately. And he has dozens of videos exactly like this, where he tells kids that the good thing to do is to cut off contact with their parents. Later, I would discover this wasn't actually all that shocking. This type of content corrupting kids was common. There's so much of this insanity going on all over social media and TikTok. This was another post in which a family doctor told kids on TikTok that they can go on puberty blockers and it's completely safe and reversible, which is obviously a total lie. And this is a medical professional who kids should trust. In another video, a stripper was walking a toddler down the runway in a club while people were throwing cash tips at her. Videos of sexualized, half-naked drag queens and strippers are rampant on social media for kids to watch and digest. And it's not just schools, hospitals, the media, big tech, TikTok, the predators on social media. They're actively waging war on our children or covering for those who are after our kids. Big entertainment companies, from Disney to Netflix, are busy promoting this garbage. Shows on Netflix, Disney, Cartoon Network, Amazon, Hulu, Nickelodeon, you name it, they've all began incorporating gender ideology into their kids' entertainment. So Disney famously went all in on the woke agenda. They spoke out about Florida's parental rights and education bill, or as the left calls it, the Don't Say Gay bill. And they vowed to help repeal it because they are apparently very against parents wanting to have a say in their children's education. And they really want your young kids to be learning about alternate gender identities in kindergarten. Then insider footage of a Disney meeting was released by my friend here, Christopher Rufo, you're going to hear from him shortly, in which executive producer LaToya Revenue says her team has, quote, implemented a not at all secret gay agenda and is regularly adding queerness to children's programming from Disney's own meeting. Disney also has men dressed as women, wearing dresses, running some of their attractions at their parks. And there we are. And have wokeified a number of their recent movies. Yeah. Kids' toys are not immune either. Who recognizes this toy? I remember playing with it as a kid. Maybe you do too, or your kids or grandkids. How could they possibly corrupt this potato head thing, right? Well, apparently Mr. isn't inclusive enough. So they, in 2021, they decided that it's just going to be potato head, no more Mr. So it's gender neutral. Mattel, the parent company of Barbie, released a gender-neutral doll in 2019, while Lego launched a special LGBTQ Lego set in 2021. These are just a few examples, but these headlines come almost daily. If you walk into any public library and go to the kids section, you'll be confronted by rainbows everywhere. It seems every book is about trans toddlers, pride parades, gender identities, and pronouns. And during Pride Month, they even put pride displays front and center like this in almost every single public library in our country. Corporate America has abandoned the idea of moral principles and sees the confusion of our children as nothing more than an opportunity to make a buck and look virtuous while doing it. From Target selling tucking swimwear to Aveeno promoting cross-dressing babies, the consumer industry is relentless in catering to radical trans activists and corrupting your kids. Our kids are being attacked from every single institution, at every single step of the way, in every aspect of their lives. My mission is to expose these institutions and individuals who target the most vulnerable in society. And by shedding light on these bad actors, we can reveal the evil that is grasping at our youth. The last thing they want is for us to go silent. And that is why we all need to speak out even louder. And the good news is that we have had some incredible wins. A teacher from the Newport Mesa district, right here in California, posted a video laughing about she has students pledge allegiance to the Progress Pride flag. She was fired a few days after I shared the video from her own TikTok. Remember Rachel Dolezal, the former leader of the NAACP, who identified as Black? I discovered that she got a teaching job at the Catalina Foothills School District in Arizona, all while having a very, very active OnlyFans account. And she was fired the day after I exposed it. A cross-dressing, non-binary male teacher in Alaska who would wear very tight dresses, which outlined his private parts, was fired also the day after I exposed him. An Illinois teacher in the Homer School District boasted about worshiping Satan and claimed to suffer from mania and psychosis. So she was fired after I posted images from her own Facebook account. And the person in charge of the library at Fort Worth School District in Texas was fired, and they removed dozens of books after I exposed the pornographic content in the books. And these are just a few of our recent examples. Thankfully, we have a lot of wins. So people always say to me, how do we fight back against this craziness? How do we take our country back and put an end to this madness? How can we protect children from this evil agenda? Here's how I think about it. Like I mentioned when I first got up here, I'm just one individual, a former real estate agent, who noticed something was wrong and started reposting TikToks anonymously on Twitter. And here I am, less than 3 years later. I've been able to help legislators across the country enact laws to protect our children. I've been able to help remove dozens of radical activist teachers from classrooms across America. I've helped expose the disgusting pornography in schools, which led to hundreds, if not thousands, of sexually explicit books being removed from school libraries across the country. And you're here today because you also noticed that something is deeply wrong. Something doesn't feel right. And that means that you can do something about it too. Not just can, you must. Now, I believe that we all have our different roles to play. My role is to expose the left's war on our children through social media. I feel God put me in this position specifically for this very reason. So I'm going to continue fighting every single day. Now, I know you all want to get to lunch, so before I leave off, I just want to share with you a personal story. So, many of you have probably gone away to college or sent your kids away. You know what it's like to be away from home. I myself went away to boarding school. So, imagine you are a teenager attending boarding school in a far-off city, away from your family, but there's no phones and no air travel. And that's what happened to my grandfather in Lithuania in 1940. He was trapped in Lithuania in a faraway school with his classmates when war broke out across all the surrounding countries. The Nazis were hunting down every single last Jew to murder them. And this young group of boys attending a Jewish school, a yeshiva, they basically gave up on surviving. And that's when they found an unexpected savior. Allow me to introduce you to Shayune Sugihara. He was a Japanese diplomat working in Lithuania at the time. And he saw the dire situation that the Jews were in, and he decided to defy his superiors, put his life on the line, face strict punishment, and save as many Jews as he can. So he started basically handing out visas to anyone who needed one. And some estimates say that he gave out over 5,000 visas, no doubt saving thousands of people from certain death. And my grandfather was one of the lucky ones to get one of those visas, and he was able to escape and survive the war. Some estimates claim that as many as 100,000 people who are alive today are descendants from those who Sugihara saved. And I, of course, am one of them. I am here today thanks to the actions of one brave individual. I and tens of thousands of others will forever be indebted to him. I believe each of you has your own role to play. That might be sending tips on what you're seeing in your kid's classroom or at the workplace to people who can help expose it. It might be running in a local election like a school board. It might be supporting people who are on the front lines of this fight or helping your neighbor register to vote. There are so many ways each and every one of you can get involved in this fight. And to fight this war on our children, we need all of you. There's a famous Jewish saying, anyone who saves just one life has saved an entire world. And as we see from Sugihara, there really is no limit to what one person can accomplish when they decide to stand up for their beliefs. So join me, let's go do something and take our country back.